government workers inside the United States feel a little anxious and off balance, as we've just been saying, many people I've talked to in countries around the world are feeling much the same way. That's because of the rise of so-called illiberal democracy and President Trump making no secret of his fondness for those strongmen leaders. This phenomenon is especially and proudly present in Hungary under Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. He's the populist nationalist who won a third landslide victory this past April, and he in fact coined the term illiberal democracy. He has locked horns with the EU leaders over his draconian immigration policies and clamped down on democratic institutions. In fact, earlier this month, in an unprecedented move, the EU Parliament censured Orbán's government for breaching EU values and began a process that could suspend Hungary's voting rights. Now, Péter Szijjártó is Hungary's foreign minister, and when I spoke to him in New York, I asked him about his government's affinity for the Trump administration and vice versa. Foreign Minister Szijjártó, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored.
I want to ask you, you obviously have a close relationship with the Trump administration, would you say? Does your government support the Trump administration?
Well, we are not American citizens, so I think it doesn't matter whether we support them or not, because it doesn't make sense. But if you ask me the question whether a political relationship is better currently compared to the Democrat administration, yes, it is better.
President Trump has an immigrant, asylum and refugee program that seems a lot like yours. What do you make of the United States at historic lows in their admission of refugees to this country? It's like 30,000 they've put limits on. Of all the rhetoric that President Trump uses towards whether it's immigrants south of the border, the separating of parents and children, obviously his rhetoric to Muslim nations, to African nations, I don't need to repeat all the slurs. But in general, how does your government assess that and evaluate it?
What I can tell you is that we consider it as a matter of sovereignty, how a country deals with the issue of migration. We absolutely respect if a country, if a nation would like to make the decisions about whom to allow to come to the territory of that given country and whom not. We absolutely respect the rights of the nations to make a decision with whom they would like to live together and what kind of country they want to be created of their own country. So that's why when we make our migration policy, for example, then we expect the same kind of approach towards us to respect our decision, because we never judged countries with a different type of migration policy until there's no pressure on us to follow them.
Now, the problem, of course, is that your migration policy is under the microscope, certainly within the EU, to which you belong, and the EU has certain rules and regulations and policies of tolerance and asylum and acceptance, etc. You have said that Hungary will never be a country of migrants. And your Prime Minister has talked about, for instance, he said this: "We don't see these people as Muslim refugees, we see them as Muslim invaders." He's talking obviously to the waves of Syrian war refugees and others who've come in fear for their life. He sees them as invaders. He's even alluded to an epidemic, a disease, that they could bring a disease or be terrorists, all of them potential terrorists. This has caused a huge amount of controversy and negative reaction around Europe and other parts of the world to your country.
Look, our country has a direct experience back from 2015 how these migratory flows looked like. So we don't speak about this issue what we have as we had seen it on television or as we had heard it from news. We have experienced it firsthand, as there were 400,000 illegal migrants marching through our country, disrespecting our rules and regulations entirely, disrespecting the way we live, occupying open and public areas, demanding issues which are absolutely not covered by international law. These people came through at least 4 or 5 safe countries until they reached Hungary, and then they violated our border. My question is, what is the legal or a moral ground for anyone to cross, to violate a border between 2 peaceful countries? These people came through Serbia, Croatia, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey, all peaceful and safe countries. So it's not a fundamental human right that you wake up in the morning, you pick a country where you would like to live in, like Germany or Sweden, and in order to get there, you violate series of borders. This is not the way it should work out.
Let me just first try to get your feeling about this. Do you agree that they are invaders? Do you have any respect for the international right to asylum and refugee rights?
No, we comply with all...
First, invaders. Are they invaders?
Actually, you see them. They come. They violate your border. They disrespect any kinds of regulations. They are not ready to cooperate with your local authorities. They attack your police. They cause injuries to your police people. And the second part of your question, if I may, just because I think it's a very important question, that whether we comply with the international regulations, yes, we do, absolutely and entirely.
Many of these people, as you correctly point out, were trying to get to other countries. Hungary was a transit place. They didn't really want to stay in your country.
No.
One of the big problems is that Europe and members of the EU refused a sort of a quota system, refused, including your country, refused to take their fair burden sharing responsibility.
No, I don't agree with this part of the sentence.
Which bit, the fair?
Yeah, because we took part in this, we have been taking part in the solidarity, as we have been spending 1 billion euros in the last short period of time on protecting the external border of the Schengen area and of the European Union. And yes, we do not agree with the quota system, because quota system is, number one, violating sovereignty of countries, because it is you have to make a decision whom you allow to come to your country. And number two, quota system is an invitation, is an encouragement for further migratory waves, and this is something that we reject.
So, as I try to pursue exactly what your government is trying to be, your Prime Minister Orbán, has repeatedly said that his main aim is to preserve, quote, Christian Hungary. And you've said, we don't accept that multiculturalism is a value by itself. Less than 2% of Hungarians were born outside the country. It's weird, that kind of language. It's very out of step with
it's honest.
The work. It's honest, okay. It's honest from your perspective.
Yeah.
But what are you saying? That anything other than white Christians into your country are not accepted?
No one said that.
Excuse me. Your Prime Minister did say it. A Christian Hungary. Preserve a Christian Hungary.
Yeah, because we have been a Christian country for a millennium. And I don't really understand why is it bad news that we don't want to change that. And I don't understand why is it bad or why is it unacceptable that we would like to stick to our history, to our culture, to our heritage, to our religion. And you know, in this case, I can tell you that we never judged other countries which had different kind of policies. We never judged countries who said that multiculturalism is more valuable than a homogeneous society, for example. But please, let's leave it to the certain countries. Let's leave it to us to make a decision whether we think multiculturalism is more valuable than a homogeneous society. I understand we don't agree on that, but I respect that you have a different position, and I'm not going to judge you on that. I'll find you a very sympathetic person independently from this. So I will never judge you, but I expect the same, that we think this way. And please, let's leave it to a sovereign decision of a nation, how it would like to continue its life in its own country. So yes, we think that a country sticking to its heritage, its culture, its religion, is as valuable as another one which thinks that multiculturalism is better than that.
I fully understand what your Prime Minister and your government thinks. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it and the underlying facts. You claim to have an immigration problem, or you don't want these invaders. Sorry, let's put it a different way. You don't want these invaders.
Illegal migrants we don't want, yeah, sure.
Your Prime Minister called them invaders.
Yeah, okay, I agree.
Yet, you don't actually have an immigration problem. You don't have an asylum problem. You have a population of 10 million or so with less than 4,000 refugees or people seeking to migrate, and some of those seeking asylum. You don't actually have a numbers problem, and you haven't declared a massive crime problem or a terrorism problem. So I guess my question is, again, why? What is the basis? Is it just cultural? Is it just Fortress Hungary?
Because if it did not resist or reject, then we would have these problems.
So essentially you, Hungary, are trying to be the firewall. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, actually we are protecting our border. We are complying with our obligations because, look, we are members of the Schengen area. You know Schengen area?
Yes, that's what I was going to get to.
We are a member of the Schengen area. The Schengen Code says very clearly, if you are a country located at the external border, like we are, then you have to comply with the following obligations. Number one, you have to make sure that your border is only crossed through the border crossing points. Number two, only with proper documentation. And number three, only during opening hours. And we have to comply with that, and we do.
But there are other EU rules that the EU believes you are in violation of, which go to all sorts of issues like rule of law, tolerance, and all sorts of things. The EU is currently proceeding with Article 7, which could invoke disciplinary action and the suspension of some EU membership rights. I mean, how does Hungary feel being sanctioned by the EU itself?
We are not.
Well, they're talking about it. You know, the process is ongoing.
I have, of course I do.
Well, what if you were then? You know, how do you feel if you were?
I'm among the very few ones, I guess, who read that report. It has 69 points, putting allegations on Hungary, out of which 13 points are agreed upon by the European Commission and the Hungarian government. Agreed, period. 19 are under discussion, and 37 are just lies. Now, the governments of Czech Republic, the Prime Minister himself, and the government of Poland made it very clear immediately.
Well, they're all like-minded.
That they would veto any kind of sanctions against Hungary. And you know that it requires a unanimous decision. And you know that the same kind of procedure is going on against Poland currently. And we would veto any kind of sanctions against the Polish
I'm going to get to that in a moment, because you're all fairly like-minded in your policies.
Yeah, in Central Europe we are,
yes,
for sure.
I want to ask you a question first, though, about this immigration before I go on.
Please.
I mean, we were all somewhat shocked, and we reported it, when in June of this year, your country passed legislation which criminalizes lawyers and activists who even seek to help asylum seekers. Anyone charged can face up to a year in prison. And of course, that legislation was condemned by the EU and the United Nations. You're here at the United Nations right now. I mean, it is kind of shocking on a basic human level to punish ordinary activists, civilians, lawyers who want to help some of these poor people who are fleeing in danger of their lives and security.
You know, the problem is that I'm pretty sure that those who has written this statement on your paper have never read this law. That's the problem.
So what is the law then? Do you not criminalize it?
No, and people who criticize Hungary on such kind of issues, I always ask the question, man, have you read what you're speaking about? Because in this law, you know what's in this law? In this law it is said that if you promote violation of the border of Hungary, if you promote illegal ways to come to Hungary, if you promote opportunities regarding asylum which are against the law, which are without a legal basis, then you face consequences, because it's a national security issue.
Fine. Let's say somebody arrives in your country.
And I wonder what would happen here in the United States if I or anyone else would promote the way of illegal entrance into the United States. Is that a crime here? Yes, it is.
You've seen what's happened at the border here,
yes,
and there's a huge backlash, and the president has had to retract his zero-tolerance policy, which was incredibly draconian.
But if I come back to this source,
but actually, I want to come back to
just
something.
1 second, sorry, if I come back to the source, so this is the overall problem with the with all the allegations on Hungary, that you put forward such kind of statements. It has an impact.
I'm going to let you have your say in a second.
And the problem is that this is not in the law. You know,
I'm going to play a soundbite of what you said on this issue to the United Nations.
It is obvious that the UN officials spreading these lies about Hungary are biased pro-migration officials. But I have to tell you that Hungary will never be a country of migrants. We will always protect the security of the Hungarian people. We will never allow one single illegal migrant to enter the territory of our country. And we will always protect our own border.
Yes.
So in that regard, you've addressed what you consider the problem with those who oppose you. I guess the reason why we're really interested in having you on is because you're emblematic of what's happening in part of Europe right now. You've just mentioned the sort of alliance between the governments of Poland and Czech Republic.
And Slovakia as well, so you're
right. And Slovakia, so I'm half right. And yourself, even though I misspoke. There is this growing phenomenon of illiberal democracy, which is what your Prime Minister coined that term. Now that sends chills through the hearts of many people who believe there's either democracy or autocracy. Tell us what illiberal democracy is as you see it, because the press, as far as we can see, are victims of illiberal democracy. They get in many parts, they get pushback. Some of this tolerance in terms of migration. What is illiberal democracy, and why is it a good thing?
Thank you very much for asking, because then I can explain what he said, because it was pretty much mischaracterized and has been mischaracterized. So what he said was that we are faced with a phenomenon that when it is not the liberals to win an election, then it is immediately considered as not a democracy. I'll give you one example. We won the latest elections in April for the third time with a constitutional majority. 49.6% of all the votes went on us, with a record turnout and the record support. Hundreds of thousands of votes, we have more than all other parties in parliament together. So what was the reaction of European Union, for example? Many ministers in European Union institutions, that the Hungarian people are not smart enough to make a decision about their own future. That is what we call illiberal, because immediately after it's not the mainstream liberals or anyone to win, then it's considered immediately as not a democracy. And my question is, why we have to say words in front of democracy? Then what we say about Christian democracy, for example, is that worse than what we consider a liberal democracy?
What is illiberal? Your Prime Minister...
That's what I said.
No, what is it? What is, as far as...
It is,
how do you explain...
It is a democracy when it is not the liberal parties to win.
But you do act as if the opposition is somehow illegitimate.
No, I don't say that. I just say that you have to be balanced and you have to listen to the government as well, not only to opposition when you dislike the government, you know.
One of the more serious charges, and I'm afraid it is a very serious charge, is anti-Semitism. As you know, your Prime Minister has been accused of stoking anti-Semitism through the way he's dealing with George Soros and his praise of the World War II leader Miklos Horthy. He was a Hitler ally. After meeting Benjamin Netanyahu this year, though, Prime Minister Orbán pledged zero tolerance on anti-Semitism in Hungary. Do you accept the criticism, and are you going to enact zero tolerance on anti-Semitism?
We have announced zero tolerance on anti-Semitism years ago, and we practiced it.
But
and
he
we are
clearly
proud.
felt the need to promise it again to Prime Minister of Israel.
No, I tell you, we are proud on our track record regarding anti-Semitism. We are a country which has the biggest Jewish community in Budapest in Central Europe. We are a country where the Jewish community has a renaissance in its cultural life. We are a country where the biggest synagogue of Europe and one of the biggest Catholic cathedrals of Europe are within walking distance. We are a country which is going to host the Maccabi Games next year. We are a country...
Just to be sure what they are the Israeli and Jewish Olympics.
Yeah, right, basically. We are the country where Fyodor Herzl was born.
That's why people are concerned about it.
We are the country which put into the penal code that denial of Holocaust must be punished. And then putting such kind of allegations as us is, I think, you know, it's much more than acceptable.
Well, they are serious allegations. Do you regret then the government's attacks and slurs against George Soros, which looked very much like they were using traditional, what's it called, dog whistle, anti-Semitic terminology? Or was that just political? And because he was...
I reject that.
Okay.
I reject that.
But then was it political because he was supporting the opposition?
No. We have a very serious debate with George Soros, a very serious one. But this debate has nothing to do with his religion. This debate has to do with the contradiction of the visions about the future of Europe. His vision about the future of Europe is totally different than ours. He would like to see a Europe in a post-national, post-Christian phase, you know, where borders don't count, where national identity is pushed back, where migrants are being allowed at least 1 million a year. Our vision is totally different. He called my Prime Minister maniac. He called our country a mafia state. So my question is that if he attacks us like that, with money, with media, with funding opposition or at least NGOs in the country, why shouldn't we have the right to react and say that no, we have a totally different concept and we want our concept to win and not yours, Mr. Soros. And it has nothing to do with his religion, nothing.
So do you regret some of the terminology that was used then, whether it was directly from the government
By whom?
or, well,
by whom?
I can
be responsible for what we, the government, has said, what we as a government has said, and we don't care about his religion.
And finally, Hungary is a beautiful country. Budapest is a fabulous capital. You have world-renowned food, world-renowned culture, music. It's a great little jewel. And it also stood up in a way that taught the rest of Europe, you know, against the Soviets, and it was crushed at one point. It just seems that things are getting way too authoritarian, and people can't figure out why this is happening in Hungary, of all places, which should know better.
Okay, I can tell you one thing. I really do hope that you will make some time in the very near future and come.
I have been.
I'll host you. And you will look around and you will see that this country is really developing. This country loves the guests. This is not without a reason that the number of tourists increase in a very rapid way. It's a politically stable country. We have leadership. We have a strong leader, definitely, which I look at as a value. We have a very strong, strong mandate from the people. Imagine, we have won 3 continuous elections with constitutional majority. I mean, why do you consider it as authoritarian? It's very democratic because we have not won these 2/3 majorities on a lottery. We won it based on the will of the people. And please, don't look at the Hungarian people as if they were not smart enough to make a decision about their own future.
Did I say that?
No. Generally speaking, not you personally. How it comes that we spent 8 years in office and then we won another landslide victory with the most votes ever? That might have a reason. And that the reason might be that the people are satisfied and the people want us to continue.
So given all of that, what you've just said, would you then agree with the description by the EU's foreign policy chief when I just sort of asked her about the rise of populism and nationalism across Europe? And I was kind of including your country and others. I didn't mention your country, but this is what she said to me.
I wouldn't call it a populist movement. I think we have to call things with their name. It's a far-right, extreme right political movement, parties, traditional parties. That have very little of unconventional and very traditional extreme right positions, not only Europe, but elsewhere in the world as well.
Would you agree?
No, I absolutely disagree. She is a far-left politician, so I'm not surprised her saying such kind of things. You know, we are a very true Christian Democratic Party in Hungary with a very wide support, and I have to reject such kind of statements because they basically form an insult against the people, because with these statements she portrays people not being smart and mature enough to make this.
She doesn't say anything about not smart.
I know her very well.
She says what they choose.
I know her very well, and I have to tell you that she's far left, so I'm not surprised what she said. I'm not surprised.
I was going to ask one philosophical question,
please.
but I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
No, let's try.
There is one thing we can agree with, I think, is that politics have moved from the center.
Yeah,
and there are the extremes on both sides. And it's, you know, the question is, how is that going to evolve? Because it seems like, I use the word tribalism because they even talk about politics here as everybody in their tribes. Tribalism is not a pejorative, it's just it is. It's happening, isn't it? It's even happening in Europe.
Well, what I can tell you is the following, that hypocrisy and political correctness have been around for too long time. And people have a hunger for honest and straightforward speech. This is what I see in Europe. So if you put into consideration the last 4 national elections in Europe, for example, Italy, Austria, Slovenia, Hungary, you see that those parties gained the most support who were credible in what they said, who were credible in their track record, and who got rid of this hypocrisy and political correctness and named things as they are.
Foreign Minister Szijjártó, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.